Hi, it's Tracy from Two Rocks Tarot. In this week's tarot tips and tricks, I'm going to be talking about how you can actually connect with the deck. Now, this can be a new deck, it can be an old deck that you've never really sort of gotten along with, or you didn't like for one reason or other, that type of thing. So I'm also going connecting with the deck. So even though I've connected really well with this deck, I'm just going to use the Light Seers Tarot for this exercise. So I've actually edged mine in a blue and a green, although it looks more blue in there at the moment. And what I've done, now the way that you can connect through a deck is there's so many different ways that you can do it. And, you know, of course, we all know about the old putting it next to your side of the bed and all that sort of thing. And, you know, that doesn't really work. You need to actually physically hold it, shuffle it, look at it and use it. So what I've done, so a great way of connecting with a new deck, or, you know, like I said before, one deck that you're having trouble with, is to use crystals. So what I've done before I actually started this video, I chose 3 crystals, and this one is a varicocite crystal, good old amethyst crystal, and a piece of sodalite that's kind of like the shape of a jelly bean. So they're the 3 crystals that I've chosen. Okay, now say this is a deck that you're not connecting with. So basically what you do is you give it a shuffle and then choose 3 cards for each crystal. Okay. So all right, so I've got all right, 3 cards have come up. So I've got one for the varicocite, one for the amethyst, and one for the sodalite. Okay. So the one for the varicocite, which is this one here, beautiful crystal, this one, beautiful calming energy. And the hermit came with this particular card, okay? So if I just pop it like that, so you can. So the first thing you can see is that, and there used to be a funny saying, many years ago, I used to be a florist, and there was this saying that red and green should never be seen, which was kind of funny because red and green does look good together. As we all know, Christmas is like that. But here we've got blue and green. So blue and green complement each other. So the blue is, of course, is from the throat chakra, and the green is the heart chakra. But the card is the actual hermit. So how does this meld together? So the hermit in this particular one is all in blue. It's on its own. You can see the light that is coming through the, you know, around her. Is it actually coming through her hands? Or she just seems to be, it's probably the moon or the, I'd say it's more the moon, even though it kind of looks like the sun sort of rising behind her there. But so what this is telling you about connecting with this particular card and with this deck is that you need to seek the answers from within. You need to speak your truth, and you need to also listen to your heart when it comes to connecting with this deck. So whatever your heart's telling you, don't let your mind overrule it. It wants to speak your truth, and sometimes speaking your truth is really, really hard, and you won't, you know, you're going to have trouble doing it. So the varicocite there is actually saying, because this is a very calming, gentle energy. Every time I pick up this crystal, I can't stop holding it. It's a beautiful, beautiful crystal. I'm not going to go into all of the qualities of the crystal because everybody sees it differently and feels it differently. So if you really like this crystal, just have a Google. I'll put down what crystals I've used on the description box there. So obviously this deck wants you to connect within yourself, and it wants you to speak your truth, and also wants you to follow your heart when it comes to using this deck. I mean, because let's face it, you might try, and you might not like this deck and decide to move it on. And that's your heart chakra, you know, that's your heart chakra speaking. It's telling you to follow your heart when it comes to this deck. But it's also saying that this deck is one that you've got to sit deeply with and look within to find the answers that you seek in the deck. So by looking within, it's not getting books, it's not looking towards the guidebook, it's not looking to Googling meanings, it's looking at it and seeing what you actually see in the card, you know. Let the card speak to you, because this card is all blue, isn't it? So even though it's a hermit card, which can represent solitude and going within, finding your own path, is so eloquently portrayed there with the steps that are just near my finger. It's also a journey to find yourself, and it's a journey when you work with a tarot deck, okay? It's not something that can be done within a few days or a few months. Sometimes it can take years before you actually truly connect with a deck. So this deck is saying that it's a journey. So you might have the Light Seers deck and not might be connecting with it right now. I was actually going to use the Mary L, but something told me to pull this deck out. So, you know, maybe you were one of these people that had the fear of missing out on this deck. You brought it and you looked at it and it's just not talking to you. So this card is telling you it's a journey. It starts from within. It's going to take time. You need to follow your heart and you need to speak your truth and not be afraid to read the truth. Do not be afraid to read the truth that you see in this tarot deck, okay? And then the Varicocite, as I said, it's a very calming energy. You know, you can never, ever, every time I hold it, like I'll probably be holding it through, I'll be wanting to keep touching it all the time. You know, then you can look at the crystal and you can see, you know, it's a bit of it's a square, but it's kind of got a point up the top. So there might be something that's pointing. It wants to point something out to you, this deck, and you're not really listening to it. And it's not going to show up on camera, but there is that type of green of the crystal that's all around there. And I chose the crystals first and then I chose the deck. All right, I always do that. I always choose the crystal first and then I grab the deck, and that's just another way to connect as well. So there you go. So that's just, you know, the first card. So I'll put that to one side. So the second card, let's see what I've got. And of course I'm not going to be able to pick it up. This desk is really, really hard, especially when one bites their nails, to get the cards off it. So this one is the Seven of Cups. Okay, and the crystal was the amethyst. Now again, if you look at it, it's got a point on the top as well. So what's it pointing out to? So we know that the Seven of Cups is about choices, and it's also about, which I don't think a lot of people realize this, but I can't say they don't realize this, but it's also a card of manifesting your dreams as well. So it's not just choices and fairy dust type of things. You can manifest your dreams. So we see someone here is in deep in thought. He's touching one of the upturned bowls, and we see a snake, what looks to be part of a dragon wing. But what we also see here is a couple of ladders. Okay, can you see the ladders there? One on the bottom and one up the top. And look at the stairs in the Hermit card. So again, this card is confirming that it is going to be a journey. It's going to be small steps before you actually connect with this deck, okay? Out of all of the bowls, there's an orange one in there. And orange is the color of communication. So, again, you need to communicate your needs clearly when you use this deck. And so that means asking clear, concise questions. I mean, I like to shuffle a deck, and when a card pops up, I just read it intuitively, what's it trying to tell me. But if you're trying to connect with this deck, you need to ask clear, concise questions with it. I mean, there's a lot of blue in this card as well, as was in the Hermit card as well. So you really need to be clear when you're asking questions of it, all right? And because amethyst has come up with this, amethyst is always, you know, a card of your third eye, of your chakra. So it's telling you to trust your intuition. It's also telling you to... Okay, I just had to pause that. Then I had a massive sneezing attack. So amethyst is about spiritual vision. It's about experience, virtue, all that types of thing. So look at the color of the crystal that you've chosen. So it's even this is an amethyst. There's a very clear point on the top of this particular amethyst, as you can see. It's actually, I can't even remember how I got this one. This is one of a few crystals that I've got that I don't know how I actually got it into my collection. So this Seven of Cups is kind of like a watery card. So the ways to connect with this deck is not only to have clear, concise questions, but it looks like it's pointing towards questions that will be emotional, that'll be good to answer with, questions that deal with your spirituality, and of course, we've got orange as well in there, and then that's, can stand for victory, willpower, vigilance. So it's telling you not to give up. So even though when you're looking at this deck and you're seeing lots of things and they're not making sense, probably the best way to do is jot it down in bullet form, and later on these things will come to you and they will make sense. So we'll look at the third card now and see what this one is. And this is the Two of Swords, and the sodalite is the one. Now notice how the blue and the black kind of look really, really good together. And of course, you know, black and blue, we've all heard of that. And this card might be literally revealing to you some bruises that have happened to you in your life, things that haven't gone to plan, things that have hurt you, and you don't really want to know about it. And this is why you're having trouble to connect with it. It's an underlying tension. You know, you look at the crows, you know, they're really pecking at her head. There's lots of strings that are binding her up, and you're not clearly seeing what this deck wants to tell you. And so what this card is actually telling you, that every time you pick up this deck, you start to get tense, because you know you're not connecting with it, and you really want to, but that tenseness the deck is picking up on. So it's not going to tell you what you want to know, because you're not ready to hear it yet, if that makes sense, okay? Because you know, it's hard to explain, but decks are such a connection to us. The reason we choose decks is because the images call out to us in some way. It's a message that wants to get across to us, whether that's our higher self, whether that's through angels, your guides, your spiritual guides, spirits, whatever. But it's a message it wants to get across. But with this particular card, and also, you know, there's a lot of brown in it there. So, you know, you need to ground when you start using this deck. So straight away, the other two were talking about your emotions, about going within, speaking your truth, following your heart. And this is saying not to feel tense when you actually grab the deck that you're having trouble with, because it's going to pick up on that, and it's just going to give like wishy-washy answers. And even the Seven of Cups can sort of stand for that too, that you're getting, you know, 7 different types of answers to the one question. This can be because you keep on asking the same question, and the tarot gets the jack of that, believe it or not, it does. It'll start giving you gobbledygook. So you need to be clear and concise what you're asking. And sodalite is a, you know, it's a beautiful crystal, but it's also one for, well, it was supposed to, but didn't work for me. It's supposed to be good for older women. It's supposed to be good for accepting the signs of aging, which wasn't what I was brought this actually for, but it was actually supposed to help with hot flushes, which it doesn't work for me, but a green aventurine actually works a treat for me with that. So, having sodalite and having that meaning attached to it, so this deck is leaving you hot and cold, you know, it's not sort of working for you at the moment, but it will, but you have to give it a chance. So you have to try and not have that actual tension when you actually pick up the deck. You're right, you know, you've got to let it sort of flow freely. That was a little bit hard to say. So that's one way you can connect with a deck that you're not bonding with, all right? So this can stand with new decks. You know, if you just get a new deck, you want to see what type of energy it's got, you know, pick a few crystals, pull a few cards and see how they marry up together. Another way, what I like to do is, well, I used to do it, I don't do it anymore, because when I first started reading, I actually started with Lenormand cards, okay, this particular deck, not this particular one, the very first edition that I've actually got coming to me from a beautiful subscriber out there who has sent it off to me. I'm hoping it'll come in today's post. So this is the second edition. But when I first started reading the tarot, I didn't trust myself because I learnt Lenormand first. So what I used to do is I'd pull out, do my spread, and then I'd pull out corresponding cards to the actual tarot, so I could make sure that I was getting the gist of it. And you can use this to your advantage when you're trying to connect to a deck. So let's have a look and see what this deck's going to say about the Hermit card, okay? So let's just say, what message is the Hermit card trying to give me? Or why am I not connecting, you know, and see. All right, so the card that I've got here is the Star card, and this is going with the Hermit card, all right? So the star, and look at that, it almost looks, and it's practically the same blue, okay? So what this star is saying, the star is a card that when it reflects a person, it generally reflects a person who wishes well on everybody. You know, they haven't got an unkind thought in their body. And also it reflects, much like the star card in the tarot, hopes and dreams and wishes. So what's this telling me about the Hermit card is that you deeply, deeply wish to connect and bond with this deck. And if you work hard enough at it, your dream will come true. You'll have a long-lasting, lifelong-lasting connection with the deck. So the star is a really good card to actually come up for representing the Hermit card. So I know you're all thinking now, how did I figure that out when I didn't know what I was doing when I started reading the tarot? You've got to remember with Lenormand, it's not usually a one card type of answering type of deck. You usually need two or more to get the message out of it. It's just that I've been reading well, as long as I've read tarot, it's about 28 years, because this deck first came out, and I haven't got the book with me. I think it was in 2000 when it came out, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I've been reading it as long as I've been reading the tarot. And because I know when I said that once, somebody didn't believe me until I could prove in the book that's when she first brought these cards out. So they've been around for many, many years, and it's a damn good deck. It really, really is. So, but just for this instance, I can say that, I can answer the question, but then I'll read all three of the cards together. So let's see what the Lenormand's got to say about the Seven of Cups. So I'll read them individually, and then I'll read it all together, okay? So let's have a look. Seven of Cups. There we go. That one popped right up. Oh, it's absolutely perfect. And honestly, and the colours are matching. The whip. Look at that. Blue, blue, blue. And that's exactly right. And that's what I was saying before. There's a tension to it. There's a nervousness to it, because the whip is can sometimes represent sexual tension. But I think what this is representing is that you're going to have a lot of arguments with this deck. You're not going to agree with everything. And that's exactly what it's like when you start on the tarot journey. And Lenormand as well, because when I first started reading Lenormand, everyone used to say that you can't, and people still swear black and blue, that you can't read Lenormand intuitively, which is a crock of shit. Of course you can. So, and this is exactly right. And this is kind of points to the Two of Swords as well. There's this tension there, This is this argumentative energy, and this is what you're fighting, your intuition, okay? You're fighting the answers that are coming. You're not really believing it, all right? And let's have a look at the Two of Swords. It would have been great if I could have done this with a deck that I don't bond with, but all of my decks I actually have. So let's have a look at the Two of Swords. No, I don't want two cards. Just give me one card, please. There you go. All right, and this is perfect. Absolutely. I couldn't have picked these cards out if I had tried it. And the Mountain. Have a look at the colours again. Not quite, but there's a lot of, if you're looking at the background then, if you're looking at the actually, if you look at the ground, and on this card, on the card as well, there's the brown, there's the grounding. And this is exactly what I was saying, is that when you start shuffling this deck, there's this underlying tension there. You believe subconsciously that it's not going to work, you're not going to get the answers that you seek, and the Mountain represents obstacles. And this is the obstacle that you need to get over, that you need to not be feel tense when you pick up this deck and shuffle it and ask questions, And it's going to be a big mountain to overcome. It truly, truly is. But I don't know if you can see it, but can you see the faint glow over the mountain? That's like a rainbow. So you will find the rainbow. You will find the pot of gold. You will find the answers that you seek within this deck, but you're going to have to persevere with it, okay? And the biggest thing is not to feel tense when you actually pick up this deck thinking, oh, God, why do I even try? It's not going to work, that type of thing, okay? So all the three cards together, you had the Star first, and then you had the Whip, which I should actually do it, and I never get it right, mirrored image. That's how they turned out. So, and the three cards together when you're reading it, so when you're reading that together, the Whip and the Mountain together is a very strong indication of big problems to overcome. So this is a big obstacle. So these two together represent a really big obstacle to overcome with bonding with this particular deck, you know. You got a lot of hopes and dreams and wishes that you will, but that this is a big obstacle, and maybe some of you will not be able to get over that obstacle, and you will decide to pass on the deck, okay? To just pass it on, and you know what? Years later, you might actually pick up that deck, and it really speaks to you. And this happened to me with the Celtic Dragon Tarot. I had that deck for 15 years. I never got rid of it, and it just never spoke to me until 2 years ago when I did a challenge on Instagram, connecting with your spiritual guides, and then that deck absolutely bloody screams for me. And the funny thing was, a few days before, because it was sort of, I've got 3 drawers in my desk, and the decks that I never used a lot of, I used to sit in there, but I put that back up on my shelf. And then I read about this challenge, and I'd done it, and it just absolutely screams to me. So I know when I first got this deck, I wasn't ready to hear the messages it was going to give to me. And sometimes that will happen with a deck. You're just not ready to hear what the deck has got to tell you. So put it away. And I mean, I'm not saying you have to keep it for 15 years. It was just, I don't like throwing anything away. And so I kept that deck, and I'm really glad, because it's become one of my favourite decks to read with. It's absolutely fantastic for spiritual type readings, and you wouldn't think it being a dragon tarot, but it's really, really good. So, you know, sometimes we're not ready to hear the message, okay? And that's not a reflection on you as a tarot reader. It's just that you're not ready at that particular stage in your life. So put it away. Try it in a few months' time. Try it in a couple of years' time if you have to. But if you really truly feel that you're not ever going to get along with it, because I mean, the whip and the mountain are pretty big. I mean, it's a big obstacle to overcome. There's no harm in letting that deck go to somebody who's going to love it. There really, truly isn't. Because, I mean, that's why there are so many tarot decks out there. Because there are so many readers out there. And we all read differently, you know. We all have the same type of basic meanings when it comes to the tarot. You know, we all know what the Seven of Cups means, the Hermit, blah, blah, blah. But when you start reading intuitively, you know, the cards are going to speak differently to you, and that's how it should be, you know. That's how it should be. I mean, you can imagine how boring it would be if we went and got a reading from different tarot readers, and we just got the same message out of every single one of them. You know, they just reel off the standard meanings for it, you know. Really look at what the images are in the, you know, even though the Light Seers is, I should show you the cover, is a, you know, a writer-based deck. It's more an updated version. It's more, you know, like with the Two of Swords, we don't have someone sitting blindfolded with, you know, the swords crossed over the sea at the back. This is, you know, more of, actually, I think it describes better, because it's how your thoughts can really nag at you, and you're not listening, you know, you closed yourself off to what this card is trying to tell you. So you need to really, you know, look at the image. You know, what does crows or ravens, because we have crows in Australia, so what does the crow represent to you? If you live in a country where you have ravens, what do the ravens represent to you? What does even the string that they're holding represent to you? This lines up and down on her arm, which I know it's not really supposed to, but that reminds me of somebody who self-harms. That looks very much like knife marks on the actual arms as well, you know. So, you know, even the sand coming out from the armpit, what's that telling you? That could mean that something needs to be drained. So if you were sick and having trouble or something like that, that's telling you that something is literally draining you, that's sucking the life out of you. What is it? Is it because you're not grounded? You know, really look at the images. Even though these are right-away based, you can still glean a lot of out of the square type of meanings to it, you know. Why is one bowl orange and the rest golden? What does that mean to you? What do the ladders mean to you, you know? What does the snake coming out of the mist mean to you? The colour is orange. It's obviously come out of the orange bowl. What is that telling you, you know? What do the stairs mean to you in this Hermit card? Is she actually sitting on a mountain? Is she floating up in the air? To me, she looks like she's floating up in the air. This can represent that someone spends a lot of time in their head. That they're literally an airhead, if you want to put it bluntly. So even though the hermit has got a, you know, of solitude, finding your own light and all that type of thing, but this can actually represent somebody who is an airhead, somebody who spends a lot of time in their head, someone who can be not quite right in their head, somebody who can't see anything but their own perception. You know, they're too afraid to look into the light at other people. You know, they're very caught up in their own mind. It can mean things like that. And, you know, that's what you've got to do when you look at a card. You've got to really, this is going to sound weird, but I think one of my books that I've got, I'm not going to remember who it is. I always forget who the author was. But anyway, it talks about meditating and imagining yourself stepping into a card. Now, I've got a really, really good imagination, and I have done it, but I don't feel that it really, really helps to actually try and step into the card and look around. Because when we talk about looking at things from a different perspective, well, I mean, I suppose walking into the card is looking at it from a different perspective. But if you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, I feel like you see more. So if we, I'm just going to pull, actually I'll pull this card because I think this is kind of brilliant, this card. And this is Judgment. And this is, you know, to me speaks of a soul escaping, but not a death type of situation, but more of a part of you that needs to be released, you know. And to me, actually, this looks like a ballet dancer, that she's on the tips of her points of her feet, and perhaps there is a part of you that is longing to learn how to dance. Okay, so it's got nothing to do with what judgment can mean, about having the right judgment, or if you're asking about getting a job or anything like that. You know, to me this just speaks of release, and of course can be spiritual release as well. There's something spiritually that inside you that needs to be released, it needs to be looked at. But it can just mean that you long to dance. You know, you've really got to look at the cards. So then we go looking at the Four of Swords. We all know that represents rest and things like that. And this is interesting because it's in a nest and there's a little heart on a string. You know, what does the red string tell you? You know, does your heart feel like it's on a string? Is somebody always tugging at your heartstring but not making a connection? It's not a connection, excuse me, a commitment. That's what I was trying to get out. If you look at her, she's kind of got a lot of mud on her and things like that. And, you know, it looks like that she needs a rest. So it's definitely, you know, and this also can talk about building up walls. You know, what walls are you building up around you that people can't actually get to you? What type of walls are you building up? So, you know, really, really look at cards. You know, the Five of Pentacles, you know, what strikes me most is the keyhole. You know, what will I see if I peek through the keyhole? What needs to be unlocked? What am I not paying attention to? There's just so many ways to look at a card. There truly, truly is. And the ways to connect to it. So this is just a couple of ways to use crystals. Choose the crystals first. Choose the cards, read what you can, what you will. Look up the crystals that you've chosen if you're not sure on the properties of them, and see how they add to the meaning for you of the deck. Grab some Lenormand cards, grab some Kipper cards as well. I mean, I should have done that. I'll grab my Kipper cards, actually. I'll just pause it. Okay, so I've got some Chiro Machete Kipper cards. Let's have a look. So mine are actually monogrammed. I actually got these, got my name on the back, but I've edged them. I've edged them in black. So let's have a look. What can Kipper tell us about the Hermit card? No, I'll just take one. So this is adjudication. And this is perfect too. It's telling you not to judge yourself so harshly when it comes to not being able to connect and bond with the deck. You know, and see how it's got a male and female there. And to look at the energies perhaps will help you to look at it as maybe you're looking at it as a feminine deck. Maybe you're looking at it as a male energy type of deck. Maybe you're not marrying up the two together. You're judging this deck in some way, and it's left wanting, you know. You're judging it in some way. So this is about the Hermit card. So try not to, you know, be harsh on yourself when it comes to bonding with the new deck. Let's have a look what it says about the Seven of Cups. I haven't used this deck in ages. Oh, that one flipped right over. And this is poverty, you know. And, you know, when I was saying about passing on decks before, does this how this deck makes you feel? Do you feel like that it's robbing you of something? Is it robbing you of your self-confidence as a tarot reader, you know? If it is, maybe it is time to pass it on. Maybe it is time to pass it on. If it really doesn't make you feel good about yourself, you know, it could be time to pass it on as well. But then again, you know, it may be the way you're looking at it. Yeah, because it's robbing your confidence, because you might have been a very confident reader. Everybody loves this deck. I mean, because you can, you know, everyone loves the light seers. You know, there's been such a hoo-ha about it all, and then you grab it. But you know, you're thinking, what are you missing out on? You know, what's it robbing from you? What's robbing your enjoyment from this particular deck? And let's see what it says about the Two of Swords. What can you tell me about the Two of Swords? Oh, that's a whole... Oh, yeah, hang on. There we go. Toil and labour. Okay, so we're looking at these three cards, Judication, Poverty and Toil and Labour. I'd probably pass the deck on because it's become a laborious effort for you. Okay, and this is talking about the Two of Swords, don't forget, about releasing tension when you work with a deck. But you're finding it really, really hard to do it. It's just become not a labour of love. It's just become exactly like this woman is portrayed on here. It's just become a burden. It's not, you're not enjoying it anymore. So I'd probably pass it on if I got that with this particular deck. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. You know, I have got a whole, I think I've got about 21 videos now in this series, so please take a look at them, and you know, I hope you glean some information out of it. I've been thoroughly enjoying this, and until next time, this is Tracy.